I think this budget will help a lot of people struggling with the cost of living crisis, particularly those with large families. So the abolition of the two-child cap on benefits, I think, is a very positive message for a lot of people. Of course, and the energy bill relief is also a help. There will be some saving on energy bills of somewhere around about £150 a year, and that's also very helpful. But on the other hand, of course, we mustn't forget the impact of fiscal drag. As people's salaries rise, they will be dragged into higher tax brackets. And indeed, for those people at the very low end of the income scale, they may start to pay tax. So there's a give on the one hand and a take on the other hand. But I think in general, it benefits those people at the lower end of the income scale. I think this was an important budget for the public sector finances. We've had a difficult period over the last few years in terms of balancing the books, and the government has been running a large deficit and a growing debt. The Chancellor has now promised to reduce not only the borrowing per year and indeed going into a surplus at the end of this forecasting period, she's also promised that the size of the national debt as a percentage of GDP will also be falling by the end of this Parliament and at the end of this forecast period. Of course, what that means for the public sector is very important because we all benefit from the public sector. It means that the government now has some fiscal headroom to invest more in the NHS, to do more for our public services. So I think on the whole, it's a positive message for public finances and for the public sector. The impact on growth is the big question. I think it's too early to even speculate about this, but let me put it in context. The Chancellor has predicted that this budget will create growth averaging 1.5% per year over the forecasting period. But again, I'll put that in context. Between 1970 and 2010, the GDP grew on average over a 40-year period at 2.5% per year. So if she achieves 1.5%, that will be welcome, but it will not be exciting. It will not be as strong as we need. But, at the same time, growth is impacted by unforeseen events, external shocks, as we've seen recently. So let's hope her targets are achieved because we need to see a stronger growing economy, especially in terms of investment in our public sector and investment by our corporate sector, because investment is the engine of growth. Yeah, that's a difficult question to assess the impact on the corporate sector. I think there wasn't a great deal in this budget for the corporate sector. I personally would like to have seen something specifically targeting the house building industry, which is a huge part of our economy, but there was nothing in this budget for that. So I think the corporate sector will be scratching their heads a little bit, wondering what does this mean for them in terms of the cost of running their business, and of course, in particular, in terms of the cost of capital. I was watching the value of bond yields literally during the budget, and I noticed that we had a spike in the 10-year bond yield during the budget, and then it's come back down again. So I think the financial markets are reasonably happy, and therefore the financial markets funding the corporate sector. I think at the moment the jury is out on this. We wait and see. Yes, I think there are at least three winners from today's budget, in no particular order. Low-income families with more than two children will clearly benefit from this budget. The abolition of the two-child benefit cap will be great news for many, many hundreds of thousands of people. Secondly, of course, low-income workers will benefit in conjunction with the energy bill relief as well, especially young workers, because the minimum wage is going up. And so I think we should welcome that as well. And thirdly, the public sector. Public finances hopefully are now on a more stable footing, a more stable basis, and we all benefit from the public sector. And of course, the investment into the NHS will help all of us as well. Well, I think the biggest loser is probably going to be the middle to upper income earners. Fiscal drag is going to have a significant impact on their take-home pay. As their salaries rise, they'll be dragged into higher tax brackets. And the freezing of tax thresholds, of course, will last for 3 years longer than previously planned. Secondly, high-value homeowners. The introduction of a mansion tax, whereby those people who own properties worth more than 2 million and more than 5 million pounds are going to pay a surcharge. And the surcharge will go from £2,500 for those with properties over 2 million, rising up to £7,500 for those properties over 5 million. So they're going to be losers. And the third category of losers will be those relying on dividend income and who have invested heavily in cash ISAs. They're both going to lose as a result of changes in this budget. So in general, I think this was a rather bullish budget by the Chancellor. Last year's budget was heavily criticised by a number of groups in the economy, particularly the corporate sector. I think this year she's done a lot to defend her role as Chancellor, and I think she's secured her post for the next year. But we just have to hope that these measures she's announced, of which there were many, by the way, we just got to hope that they do stimulate growth in the economy. And I think that will take some time before we see the evidence of that. Thank you very much.